Yeah, what would be helpful
Good.
today?
Yeah. So I think I'll start by giving you kind of an overview of my situation
Okay,
and then kind of go from there.
sounds good.
Yeah, so I am 2.5 years out of grad school now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still finishing up licensure, looking that like that'll be done in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
And hoping to get paneled with Blue Cross Blue Shield at that point. So, because that's a big carrier in our area, and
Mm-hmm.
our site that I'm at a group practice now,
Okay,
and they have a very high reimbursement rate. So, I'm hoping that
awesome.
that will be able to work very well for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but one of the challenges is the place that I'm at doesn't do any of their own like marketing or networking really.
Mm-hmm.
They have a long history of connections to doctors' offices, and most of the people take insurance, so they just kind of let that be its own thing, and they don't do much outside of that. So I'm having to do a lot of my own stuff in the meantime.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Um, so historically, my niche was more like trauma focused. But then when I went through the Know Your Niche course, I decided I wanted to work on women who deal with like self-esteem, confidence issues, self-worth, perfectionism, that kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a website all around that. And then I just finished the marketing fundamentals courses.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still very early in that process, and wanted to talk through some of like my ideas around that and like what I want to do and get your input on some of that process. So
Sounds great.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And quick question about your niche. Are these women, is the trauma underneath it? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
Got it.
it's really a more specific form of trauma. I'm just
Uh-huh.
not talking about it as trauma like
Right.
public.
Because that's not what's bringing them in. It's the self-esteem
Exactly.
stuff. And yeah. Okay. Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So, I will say in terms of the networking piece of stuff, the groups of people that I've identified as like wanting to really work on is some OBs, some HRT doctors.
Mm-hmm.
I especially because I really want to work with like people who are like in their 40s and up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people going through perimenopause and menopause would be good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
who are wanting to be like, oh, I've been living this way my whole life and I don't want to keep living like this anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, they've hit the
Um,
like,
mhm.
I'm done with the shit
Yeah,
that perimenopause
exactly.
very graciously provides to us. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I'm also thinking about I grew up homeschooled, and I think some homeschool mom groups in the area
Hmm.
would be a good connection.
Yeah.
Because I imagine like leaders of those groups would hear from local moms who are like struggling with stuff and just
Hmm.
being like, yeah, I'm really having a hard time with this. And then
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about women ministry leaders of local churches,
Hmm.
because I can imagine people coming to them describing issues, probably more so than like the head pastors of the churches.
Hmm.
I imagine them feeling more comfortable talking to like a women's ministry leader type of person.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I was also thinking about like couples therapists, kids therapists who maybe like the mom is bringing the kid in because that's where it starts or something
Hmm.
like that. And then yoga teachers was the last thing.
Yeah.
So those were kind of the groups that I identified. I wanted to ask your thoughts on like if you had any suggestions around those or ideas or other groups to think about.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. OBs are going to be hard to get in with, like the OB-GYNs. You're going to probably end up talking to their offices more than them. I think you need to be ready with a good answer as to why you want to work with women going through perimenopause, right? Because that's just, you're not the obvious choice for that. So being clear on why, like being able to succinctly say,
Mhm.
um, I think, yeah, homeschool mom groups would be such a good place to go. Like these collectives
Mhm.
could be
Mhm.
so good because, and
Mhm.
framing it from like your ideal client who's a homeschool mom. I mean, like she's just doing so much, right? Like, and the mom guilt, I'm assuming for homeschool moms is even more or a different
Mhm.
kind of intense than
Mhm.
for maybe like, especially if they're also working. There's just like
Mhm.
trying to be an A+ at everything in your life is exhausting. And I think what a lot of like type A women are just trying to do constantly. So yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I think targeting the women's ministry leader, like that's brilliant. Um, I love couples counseling. The divorce rates definitely increase around these
Mhm.
perimenopausal
Mhm.
ages. Um, yeah, I think you've thought through it really well. The
Okay.
yoga teachers, like what I'm hearing from people about yoga teacher, like yoga studios, is those can be kind of hit or miss. Like if
Okay.
you're presenting to their folks about a specific topic and it's free, then people may come. But I don't know that I've had a lot of students say, yeah, I got like 3 clients from having done
Mm.
that, you know?
Okay.
So I might
That's
keep
good
that
to
one at the
know.
bottom of your list.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah, that's great input.
and I'm even wondering too about like if there are private high schools, like private middle
Mm.
schools and private high schools, like offering something to the PTO for the moms, like because it so often happens for those of us that had kids a little later than the
Mhm.
traditional, 20s, those of us who had kids in the 30s are hitting perimenopause around the same time our kids are hitting puberty, and it's wild.
Yeah, so many hormones all over the
So
place.
much. I feel real bad for my husband. It's like everybody's got big feelings all the
Mm.
time.
Uh-huh.
So I think that could be really good because they're in that age range,
Mm.
and still trying to do it right. Like
Yeah.
we're all trying to do it right for the rest of our lives,
Yeah.
all of us,
Yeah.
right? And so there are just so many demands that are not, it's not reasonable to do
Hmm.
a fantastic job at
Hmm.
everything that you want to do a
Absolutely.
fantastic job at. So,
Yeah. Okay.
especially when you've got this trauma history that's probably pushing you to be
Hmm.
so
That's
great all
amazing.
the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great. So, in thinking about reaching out to PTOs, is your thought like connecting with the leaders of the PTO so that they can know that I'm available to like support if they have teachers or parents come to them? Or are you saying like do like a presentation?
I think like a presentation, if you're
Okay.
down with public speaking,
Hmm.
because often they're trying to fill spots,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
so, thinking through what your ideal client would actually leave their house for, right? Like whenever I'm trying to think of titles or topics, I'm like, okay, it's the middle of winter. Home is really cozy. I mean, like I rarely leave my house. If it's 7 o'clock, I'm in, like so
Yeah.
like what would get somebody to put hard pants back on and get outside, you know?
Yeah. 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 Okay. It's funny you say that because speaking was one of the things that I decided I would like to do.
Awesome.
I actually enjoy speaking, weirdly
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten to the point of identifying the different topics yet, but I was thinking about doing one around boundaries because when I worked at a bank, I wrote like a mental health moment email once a week to the staff at the bank, and they really liked it. And the one that I did it on boundaries, like got a lot of positive feedback from the
Yeah.
people there, and I could imagine that being helpful for this population as well.
Yeah. And
Um,
just thinking about how
so
you
yeah, that's
title it,
go ahead.
right? Like
Oh yeah, I'm
titling
not
it
just
in
gonna call
such
it
a way.
boundaries.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, okay. And then so that moves into like outside of my website and networking, the ones that I connected with and I'm thinking of focusing on was blogging. I enjoy writing, so I think that would work well. I might do like a little bit of SEO, but I don't think that's going to be like a huge focus for me with that.
Okay.
And then speaking, which I mentioned, and then I wanted to ask you about Facebook.
Hmm.
I think Facebook would be the best option for this population because I think most of those women like they don't use TikTok or things like that. Maybe some of them do, but I think it's mostly Facebook. And the thing that I'm running into is I can imagine myself using it but to like take a blog post, put it into like picture formats that I've seen a lot of people do where it's like just a bunch of words and a bunch like with a nice background kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but the challenge that I'm running into is I really, really, really don't want to be like having to deal with responding to comments and like engaging with people. Like I just want to put it out there and then just ignore it and not engage with folks. And I'm kind of afraid of like, is that okay? Like, do I need to put a
It
disclaimer underneath of like, I don't reply?
I mean, you could do that, but I wouldn't count it as a marketing strategy
Okay.
because
Okay.
it's not using the best practices. And so it's like, if
Yeah.
you're not engaging, you're probably not going to get any clients from it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
unfortunately.
So it would be more just like it would be something, but I wouldn't count on it being that effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that means really I just have blogging and speaking then.
hmm
Do I couldn't remember. Do I have to have two, or is your recommendation two or
It's
three?
three. Yeah.
Three.
And I mean,
Okay.
SEO you mentioned at this point in 2025, because so many people are watchers and not readers these days, the primary benefit of a blog is SEO.
Mhm.
So I usually try to keep those two together
Okay.
because you
Okay.
can't do SEO without a blog, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
And if people don't find your blog in any,
Yeah.
like that's how they find it is through
Yeah.
SEO.
Okay. Um, okay. I may consider video as like if I find that blogging and SEO isn't getting much traction, I might look
hmm
into that option instead. But as I say that, like, I didn't get to go through all of the video content piece. Is that typically through like social media, I'm assuming?
It can be on YouTube. It can be like you can host something on YouTube, but put it on your website. Video is such a good way to have people get who you are a little bit
Mhm.
more, make them trust you more.
Sure.
Um, and I think like with basically everything that you're doing, like the beginning of your talks, or if you have like an introduction video on your website, like because you're not the obvious person for this, like starting with, hey, I'm Daniel, and I'm not the obvious choice to see women struggling in this way, but here's why I am.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I like that. Um, One thing aside from that that I wanted to get your input on is I've noticed that as I think about um, putting myself out there, talking with other therapists or just anybody about what I'm offering, one of the challenges I'm mentally expecting is that the way I do my work as a therapist is very interpersonal, kind of Rogerian, motivational interviewing, a little bit of ACT kind of thing. And
Mhm.
it feels harder to market that because it's more vague and less like DBT, where it's like, oh yeah, like here are the exact steps I follow with like my clients, and then here's the
Mhm.
exact outcomes that I experience with my clients. And so I just feel like I'm having trouble knowing how to talk about what I offer in a way that
Mhm.
still feels compelling and isn't like, yeah, I bring myself to the table and I'm a great therapist, so that helps people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
so,
think ultimately, most of the time, the average therapy seeker doesn't care or even know that we do different things, right? The
sure.
average therapy seeker is just like, I feel like shit and I want to feel better. Can you help
Hmm.
me or not? Does this person
Hmm.
seem competent? Do they
Hmm.
seem like somebody I can be real with?
Okay.
Um, so I think as long as you like in the easy effective website copy, like making sure everything is like a mirror at them. Your
Hmm.
website is barely about you at all. It's almost
Yes.
entirely about them.
Yeah.
And in terms of like how you work, I mean, you could say in a couple sentences, um, we get sick in relationships and we get well in relationships.
Hmm.
And it is my job to be one of the healthy relationships in your life so that, you can expand that or something. I don't know, say it better than that, but
Sure.
you know, um, so you can just be really succinct without using any jargon. We don't need to be like my clinical outcomes, blah, blah, blah. But just say like most of my clients are really seeking XYZ. They want to feel ABC.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
You don't even have to
I,
say, and they all get there, like
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Okay.
reflecting back to them what they are experiencing and what they
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. I one of the things I did talk about in my website copy, based on the template, was like how I've had multiple clients say like you're the first male that I've talked to about these issues who's like actually listened and understood and supported me in
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah.
just like even naming that piece of like
Yeah.
being able
100%.
to offer myself in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
I
a
guess.
corrective experience for so many of your
Mhm,
clients, I'm guessing.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it's really cool to get to experience that, and that's part of why I felt pulled to this was I love being able to offer that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I guess let me rephrase. My question, I think, is more directed at like when I'm talking not to the ideal client themselves, but more like people who will be sending clients my way
Hmm.
and how I frame it to them.
Oh, got it. So most of the time people don't ask. I think
Okay.
it's good to have an answer in your pocket though, just in case. Like, because it
Okay.
depends on modality. Like if it's
Sure.
a primary care provider may be like, so you do CBT, right? Like that's what therapy usually is, right? Whereas like the massage therapist is unlikely to ask.
That's true. That's
I
true.
think most people won't ask, but you could
Okay.
say, I'm primarily relational with some ACT and what else did you say?
Some motivational interviewing.
Oh yeah, and some MI
Yeah.
mixed in. Like
Yeah.
you can get, um, if they're asking, they need to be able to keep up with the shorthand, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that kind of knowing that most people won't be asking that question or being like, so what do you do? Like, how do you actually help people?
mhm.
Helps me feel a little bit better. So,
Yeah,
and I will
yeah,
say I do offer EMDR, and that's a really easy one to be able to be like,
yeah.
this is this one is more straightforward thing, and this
Hmm.
is what it looks like and all of that. So
Yeah.
I
And so
can
you could
always
say
bring that
like
up.
it really depends on the client, but
Hmm.
I'm always relational, and sometimes I mix in EMDR or MI or ACT,
Yeah.
depending
Okay.
on their needs.
Thanks.
Hmm.
Um, One thing I've noticed after the niche course and in having conversations with some other therapists is I found myself feeling a little bit insecure when saying what my primary like ideal client is
Hmm.
because I imagine there's a sense of like, well, anybody can work with that. Like any therapist straight out of grad school can work with that client. Like,
Hmm.
why is that a target population or whatever? Like, why would I refer them to you when I can work with that issue or
Hmm.
something myself? So I wanted to ask, because everything in the course so far is like been focused on like your experience with eating disorders, which is like most therapists are going to be like, oh yeah, obviously I don't know what I'm doing with that, so I'm going to refer to somebody like you.
Hmm.
But with something like this, where it's like it feels more generic, like anybody could work with this.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask your input on like how to navigate working around my insecurities of like still feeling confident of like, yeah, but I do have something special to offer here.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I know
yeah.
it shouldn't be this way, but a lot of therapists are not competent with trauma. So like if they
That's true.
like so that's one piece you're bringing and when you're talking to other providers, like you can say like this is what they're coming in
Mhm.
for, this is what they say they're coming in for and what they're actively struggling with
Mhm.
right now, but
Mhm.
underneath is this specific kind of trauma that I love working with. Um
That's a great idea.
So there's that. There's also like you're right. If somebody is competent with trauma and this person calls them, they're going to take them unless they're full. So it's finding those full therapists that and primarily networking with them if they're,
Mhm.
in your niche. If they're couples
Mhm.
therapists, then I mean, you're a godsend to a couples therapist, right? These therapists that work with the kids, boom, you got like therapists, we get a sense, right? Like if I'm talking to, I don't work with kids anymore, but when I did, when I was talking to a parent, I got my spidey sense of like this person feels like there's something going on that they need some
Yeah.
help with.
Yes. They could use their
Um,
own.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's
Okay.
like there's plenty of
Okay.
clients
Okay.
out there. There's plenty of space for you.
Okay. Well, and that's helpful too, thinking about not doing much networking with people who work with similar populations but are like not full.
Right. Yeah, because
Yeah,
they're going to
that's
take
not
them
really.
on.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
you would, I would,
yeah,
like so
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's helpful. Cool. Well, I next wanted to talk about some of my plan like long term and really just get your input on some of the ideas that I have just as I think about where I'm going to go in the
Hmm.
future.
Yeah.
So after I get licensed and I'm taking insurance, I'm hoping that will also help with getting my practice more full. Um, but a year or two after that, I'm hoping to leave the group practice that I'm at and establish some sort of private practice on my own.
Hmm.
But my ideal with that would be to get like a group office space where I have multiple offices and then I sublet to other therapists,
Hmm.
and not have it actually be like a true group practice where we're all like
Right.
under one thing, but just saying like you can work here and I'll rent it to you, without like a split fee or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, that's a model a couple of places here have, but not many
Yeah.
therapists here are like it's mostly group practices that exist here.
Hmm.
And I think it would be really cool to offer a space where they're not having to worry about the split anymore and can make
Yeah.
some more income for themselves.
And
So I
still have
wanted
kind of
to,
a sense of community too. Like that's one of the
Mhm.
benefits of those
Yes,
layouts.
yes, yeah, because I know for myself, I can't work at a place where I'm totally isolated. Like I
Yeah.
need to have other therapists to chat with and connect with.
Hmm.
So I wanted to ask, like, as I think about that idea, do you have suggestions of like things to do in that process that I need to be aware of, or recommendations or things like that?
Yeah. So I think being really clear about what kind of space you're looking for, is there going to be a
Mhm.
build out required? How does that get paid for? What kind of a lease is it? Is it a triple N, which is basically where you're renting the space for a certain fee, but you're also paying the property taxes, and if the boiler breaks, you got to pay for that. It's basically like, so you want more of a full service lease where like maybe you're locked into a few years, but you're not having to like pay for all these things you didn't realize. Um, what is the demand for office space like where you are? I really want you to assess that well. With so many therapists being online primarily, there's a lot less demand than there used to be. And then how are you going to find the
Okay.
people? Is it word of
Okay.
mouth? You're going to get in touch with people through Facebook groups that you're a part of that are local? Are you going to find them on site today and network with them and mention that you have space? Like, how are you going to
Yeah.
track those people? So it's like a different kind of marketing plan than you're currently working
Mhm.
on. Um, and I know like one of my colleagues here in town mentioned that she opened up a space and told, I think, two or three people, and she had like three offices and they were full like that. So she's well networked. So that might be something as you're networking for your practice that you think about really maintaining those relationships so that when you do make this move, you could just send an email to everybody that you've networked with and they'll word of mouth it for you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a great idea. When you talked about the demand for office space,
mhm,
um, so I'm in Chattanooga,
mhm.
Tennessee, and I feel like from what I hear, like it's getting more and more difficult to find office spaces.
Oh,
Like
good.
the rent is going up.
Hmm.
It's challenging for folks, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, so so am I understanding like that's actually a good factor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you're going to have to charge rent that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like you would want to make sure that your rent is always paid by like whatever you would be out of pocket is covered by theirs
absolutely.
plus.
Yes.
Um, I would also have another student who does this, and she keeps like, stocks of uh like different stocks of like tissues and things like that for herself in a
Mhm.
shared space, and that keeps getting stolen. And so being really clear about like what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours and what's shared is shared and here's what's shared. Like I will
Yeah.
always supply toilet paper, for instance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the rest is on you and making
Yeah.
sure,
That's
you've
clear
got
up
that
front.
going.
So I
Mhm.
don't have my tissues stolen.
Right? And
Okay.
then you're like,
Okay.
why am I so pissed off about these tissues? Not about the
Yeah.
tissues.
Yeah,
So,
it's not. Okay, cool. Well, the other thing that I wanted to share in terms of future goals is I am really interested in getting a PhD in counselor education and supervision
mhm.
and going back to do like teaching at the master's level. Um, I know I mentioned before I really enjoy speaking, and anytime I had to like present in class, I really enjoyed that experience.
Mhm.
So I think that that would be really fulfilling for me, and I'm curious, like just like navigating the duality of like having a separate job like that while also owning a private practice. Um, I would just love any input you have on like recommendations for navigating that duality and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I had some professors who had private practices. In most circumstances, you're going to make so much more money in private practice.
Mm,
And so it's going to be like being okay with that. Like that you are
yeah,
choosing to spend more of your time on
yeah.
something that makes less money, but
Mm,
it's fun and you love it, you know?
mhm,
And the supervision, I mean, you've got like such a good funnel essentially for future supervisees as current students once you're in that position,
yeah.
that makes the marketing piece almost a moot point because boom, they'll know you're there. They will have loved your class.
Mm,
And so they'll be clamoring for you.
okay.
So, and figuring out ways to provide supervision, like most of us want to provide supervision at a reduced rate because we remember what it was like to make 40 grand in expensive cities, right? So it's like group soup, things like that. Maybe raising your counseling rates to help
Mhm,
allow for it to make sense to charge less for counseling students. So there's
mhm.
a lot of things to kind of think through to make it make sense financially.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and just my professor friends, oh, you should come our it's kind of the backwards of like this our training this month. I don't know if you saw it, but it's someone who is working in academia and transition to private practice. So I'm sure there will be some nuggets there, and you could probably pepper some
Yeah.
questions in about the opposite direction. That would be helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will say I actually didn't realize that it would be a situation where I would be losing income moving that direction
Oh
down
yeah.
the line.
Yes.
That is pretty sad to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad.
Okay. Yeah, because
So
yeah, okay. Yeah, that might be something where it's like, okay, is it worth it? But I mean, it kind of, I guess, depends on like how important that is to me of like, is that because I mean, it's not life isn't just about the money. Like if I feel
right.
like it would be worth
Yeah.
the calling in the sense of like
Yeah.
investing in the future counselors and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, you could do supervision without a PhD. You know, like you
Yes,
could still
it's
do
true.
some of that work
Yeah.
without going through everything that a
Yeah.
PhD entails.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really more the teaching side than the supervising side
Yeah.
that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But
And
I
maybe
feel
an
like
adjunct. Like, I mean,
yeah,
adjuncts make no money, but it's like you'd make no money, but it
that
wouldn't
might
take up as
scratch
much
the
of your life, you
uh-huh.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like
That's
your
a good
community
point.
service.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good, and you've helped me get a little more understanding of like what that process might look like for me. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
absolutely.
was so good to get to connect today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And let me know in the Facebook group how things are going.
Okay. Sounds
Okay,
good. I
cool.
will. Thanks,
See you
Allison.
later.
Bye.
Bye.